There are certain times that you can just wake up in the morning and you feel a certain weight in your spirit. You feel a certain burden in your spirit, but you don't know the thing that you are burdened about. You don't know what it is that the Spirit of God is giving you an impression about. At those times, it is important to know that anytime we have these kind of experiences, when we don't know the matter for which we are burdened about, when we don't know the matter for which the Spirit of God is giving us this impression about, it is always a call to prayer. It is always a call to prayer. Let me tell you a story. When I was in the university, I attended the campus fellowship of one of the biggest denominations in Nigeria. So sometimes from campus, we would go to Lagos Ibadan Expressway. That's where they have their camp for some programs. And my school was quite a distance from the camp. But because we're part of the fellowship of the denomination, sometimes some programs that they held in camp, we have to attend. On one of those occasions, we had a program we went for in camp, and it was successful. We entered the bus going back to school. While we were returning back to school, we almost had a terrible accident that would have been very disastrous. I can't remember the details now. I think it was brake failure or one of the tires burst, something like that. Yeah. And it could have been very disastrous. But one way or the other, God saved us. Nothing happened. Nobody was hurt. Nobody was harmed. And so we were grateful to God, and we just drove back to school and got to school safely. So when I got to school, I think the next day or something like that, I was telling one of my friends about the incident. I was like, God saved us. So we almost had a terrible accident while coming back from camp. And he was like, when did that happen? I told him the day. He said, what time exactly did that happen? And I told him the time. And then he said to me, oh, this was what it was about. So I asked him, what do you mean by that? He said at that particular time, he just felt this overwhelming burden in his spirit. He was uncomfortable. He felt this discomfort in his spirit. And then, thank God he was trained. He knew that he had to pray, right? He didn't know what he was troubled about, but he was just troubled. He had this weight in his spirit. He was feeling very uncomfortable, but he was trained, and he knew that it was a call to prayer. He knew that he needed to pray. And then he went out and just began to pray and began to pray and began to pray until that burden lifted, until that weight lifted, right? And then I realized that God used his intercession to avert that disaster that could have been very terrible. And so that is what I mean. That whenever we have a sense of burden in our hearts, we have a weight, we feel a certain weight upon our spirit, we're uncomfortable about something, but we don't know what it is.